what I've asked Becca to do today is to just give us a demo of Mad Mimi while she's then educating us about the basics of email itself. So she's just going to go ahead, and then I might jump in and interrupt her and ask her what the questions that I think that you would want to know. So take it away, Becca.
Absolutely. All right, I'm going to share my screen now, and hopefully this goes through right away.
Awesome, it did.
Awesome. All right, so this is the Mad Mimi dashboard. And by dashboard, that's just the place where you'll keep all of your newsletters to refer to them later. So you can see the newsletter, you can see who you sent it to, who engaged with it, and stuff like that. So once we compose one, we can come back and look at it in our dashboard later. But it sounds like we want to start off talking about building your audience in a good way. So by audience, I mean your list, your community, the people who are subscribed to your newsletters or who perhaps will be subscribing in the future. So what I'm going to start off doing is building a web form. And this is a sign-up form that you can use on your website, on your social media pages, and somebody can sign up to be added to your list and start receiving your newsletters and campaigns. So to do this, we click on Web Form over on the right, and we have this big orange button that says Add a Web Form. So we'll start there. And now already we've got one sort of pre-built that we can then edit. So let's say that I'm a photographer and I'm looking to get new photography clients. I can name this something like Sign Up for the Photography Newsletter. And now whenever I share this form on my website, somebody can put their name in and click subscribe and be added to my audience list.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here for a quick second. That kind of little detail, little attention to detail, is the sort of thing that provides a lot of comfort to people.
Absolutely.
You know, because if there's a disconnect between what they want to sign up for and then what they're seeing, it's easy for people to get creeped out because there's so many skanky people, online.
Yes.
So you might thinking, I don't need to do that. Yes, you do.
You do, yeah. It's a great idea to make it super clear what people are signing up for. And even when we can go a little bit further and say, if we want to add them to certain audience lists, for example, we can create one audience list called daily newsletter and one called weekly or one called monthly. So that if they only want to receive emails once a month, they can sign up for the monthly newsletter instead. And that way they know how often to expect mail from you. So those kinds of things are super, super important, and I would recommend them. So this is just the very basic setup of creating a web form. You've also got options to gather more fields like people's names or their address, things like that, if you need them. But again, you only want to really gather the information that you know you're going to need. People get a little bit daunted if there's a field with a whole bunch of forms to fill out, and that might send them away. So I'd say start as bare bones as you can. So I'd recommend starting with just email addresses and maybe names. And then if you do have more information you need to gather later for segmenting purposes, like city or state or where they heard about you, then you can certainly add that to the form. So that's our first way to create our list, is to get new signups this way. What you can also do, and I encourage very much to do, is to start your newsletter by sending it to the people who already know you and love you, the people we talked about before, the ones who have been your customers or clients for a long time, who've been sort of talking back and forth with you for a while already. And to do that, you can just open them up in a spreadsheet file, which I'll show you here. This is just an example of the way you would want to lay out a spreadsheet file of your customers or clients in a way that it's going to be easy to organize and easy to segment. So we have our first name and our last name column and our email addresses, and then we have some other fields like favorite color, city, state, and an example coupon code, for example. So once you import this to your audience list in Mad Mimi, you'll be able to organize people based on those different fields. So we can send mail to people who are just from Brooklyn, or we can send mail to people who just like the color blue, and any other segments you want to create. So to do that and import those names, we're going to head to our Audience tab. And I'm going to grab that list. Now, what's great about adding contacts in Mad Mimi is that it makes it super easy to add them in whatever format you have them in. So we looked at our spreadsheet file before, and what I can do is just copy the information from that file. Then in Mad Mimi, click Add Contacts, and just paste that right into the window there. So you don't need to do any special formatting or any saving in a different version. If your list is laid out that nicely with just straight columns for everything, you can copy and paste it right into your audience. Then I'm going to click on Add Contacts, and it's importing, and it's finished. So if I refresh my page, I can see the contacts from that list are right here in my main audience. So now we want to talk about segmenting a little bit to make sure we're getting the right mail to the right people. And segmenting is basically just splitting up your list so that you can tell who should be receiving what mail. So we had people located in Brooklyn before. So let's just do a search for people who had this city listed as Brooklyn. And now we can grab those 2 email addresses and create a new audience list for Brooklyn subscribers. So now we've got our Brooklyn subscriber list with those 2 people from Brooklyn, and we still have our full list of all contacts from earlier. So now what we can do, if we have a special deal going on for somebody in Brooklyn, or if we have a special event coming up in Brooklyn, we can send an email just to those people, knowing that it'll be super relevant, something that they're interested to hear about, and not bothering with somebody who lives in California, because why would they need to know? So we've got our audience, we've got our web form set up so new subscribers can sign up. So I'll take you really quickly through composing your email, unless we have any questions in the meantime.
No, I thought that was really great. And then, are you going to talk about how to get that form on their page?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, great. So
That first,
forward
so we
ahead.
can
Okay.
go through. So there's a couple of different ways to give people access to the form so they can sign up. The first way, which is super easy and requires no coding whatsoever, is to click on this share link here. And we'll see we have a URL. If we copy this URL, it's just a live web page where that form lives. So we can go to a new tab in our browser, and this is what people will see when they click on that link. So once they click on that link, they'll be able to enter their name and email address and sign up right to the audience list. So that's the most simple way to do it. And I always recommend adding this link in your personal email signature. So when you're corresponding with people who haven't subscribed to your list yet, you can have that link down there in your signature, and they can sign themselves up if they want to receive more information.
Yeah, that's a great tip, especially if you have a really juicy giveaway.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
get my free blah 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 right here. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And then when you add that information that Becca showed you how to add to label that web form, people click on it and go, all right, well, I'm getting the blah blah.
Yeah,
So I want
absolutely.
it. So yeah, so you can see then that was a really good explanation and demonstration for how those things piece together and why they're valuable.
Exactly. And now there's another slightly more advanced way if you want to get this embedded on your website. So I'm going to click Edit on the form. And at the top here, I see this Embed button. And there's a couple of different options. Here, the first one is the Styled Embed Code. And that one is going to grab the same formatting that you see here with these rounded edges and this gray button and the name up top. So it'll look exactly like this. Your other option is the plain embed code. This one is better if you have a web designer who's putting something together for you, and they can grab the correct information and build their own cool looking form that will still send people through to your Mad Mimi audience. So this plain embed code really just works as a bare bones structure for anything you want to build that's a bit more advanced than what we offer in the system itself. And then this final one, the side tab embed, I'll show you how that works. Basically, you add this to your website code. And when you do, it'll add a little tab on the left side of your website, which will show up in a moment. And that tab, here we go, on the left here, when somebody rolls their mouse over it, the tab will wiggle. And they can click on that button and have the newsletter, the web form pop up here. And they can sign up and then exit out and go right back to your website.
Cute.
It's adorable.
Hmm.
So those are the different ways to share it on your website. We also have a great WordPress plugin, which you can enable through WordPress itself through the plugins there. And that allows the form to be displayed on your website sidebar, matching your WordPress theme. So it integrates really nicely and sort of goes through with that same look and feel that you have on your WordPress site.
Great, great. So if you're for the do-it-yourselfers out there, which I know we all start out to a degree as do-it-yourselfers, go with the simplest thing. Name that form very clearly and use the simple embed code where you're just putting the link
Mm-hmm.
and they're clicking on it and they see the name of it. I really recommend that you just keep it as simple as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Yeah, for web forms especially, you just want it to be clear and direct, let people know what to expect. And yeah, the simpler the better. I mean, I know personally, if I'm signing up for something and they're asking for, my mother's maiden name and the street I grew up on, I'm just going to close the page and walk away.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
simpler the
exactly.
better.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
don't make yourself crazy trying to make something super fancy. Just get
Yeah.
it done. Get it
Yeah,
done and be simple.
exactly.
Great.
Good call. All right, so now I'm going to start off once the siren passes my window. Sorry about that.
It's New York after all.
It is
That's
indeed.
what happens.
All right, so I'm going to start composing our newsletter. It sounds like we want to focus sort of on the idea of having a giveaway, so that when somebody signs up, they'll immediately receive an email that says, "Thanks for signing up. Here's your special gift." So what we do for that is we compose a drip campaign. So a drip campaign is what we call autoresponders. There's a couple of different names for it. Autoresponders tend to be the more familiar one. And what that is it just allows us to send an automatic message to a new subscriber of the list right away when they subscribe. So let's set one of those up for our Brooklyn list, for example. To start that, I'm going to go to Add Things and enable my drip campaign feature and turn it on and click here to go set it up. And again, we'll have this big orange button that'll get us started for a new drip campaign. Now this one looks a little bit complicated when you start, but I'm going to walk you through it, and it's pretty simple once we get to the end. So the first thing we're going to do is just name it. So we'll call this our Brooklyn autoresponder. We're going to choose which audience list should get this campaign, and obviously it's going to be our Brooklyn subscribers list. And now we can choose the gap of time between messages. This only applies if you're sending a series of emails. So for example, if you have one welcome aboard email as soon as they sign up, and then the next day a second email, like day one of your series, for example. That's what we would use if we were choosing the gap between messages. So we could send the first one on day one, the second one on day two, for example. But we're only going to do one email. So when somebody signs up, they get an email, and that's it. So for that, I'm going to choose the option for send the first promotion immediately after a user signs up. And I can just ignore the gap of time between messages since there won't be more messages. So I'm going to click on Create My Drip Campaign. And now we can add our first drip. And when I do that, I'm taken here to our composer. Now this is where you're going to start building the content for your newsletter, for your autoresponder. And this system is exactly the same across MadMimi. So if you're building a regular newsletter that you send out manually, or you're building a drip campaign that will be sent automatically, it'll still work the same way to build it. So the first thing I like to do is to add a banner image. A banner image is a picture that sits up at the top of your newsletter and kind of references your website or company. So it's a great idea to have something that has either your website logo or the same colors and fonts as your website, so it maintains some branding and reminds people that they've seen you before and that they're used to you. So to do that, I need to add my images to my image gallery. So to do that, I can click on this Browse button here to find an image on my computer, or I can just drag and drop them from my desktop. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start with my banner image and drag it and drop it in here. And I have some additional images that I want to use in my newsletter later, which I'll also just store now so I can use them in the future. So once they appear here in the image sidebar, I can drag and drop my image into the banner image space. And now this will sit up nicely at the top of my promotion, letting people know that this photographer that you subscribed for is now emailing you. Now, down at the bottom, we see a bunch of different buttons we can use. These are called modules, and they're basically building blocks for your newsletter. When you hover your mouse over, you can see you can have one that has an image on the left and text on the right, or the reverse of that with text and image, or just a text module, or just images, or a section title or a divider line. Now these are great because you can mix and match them all you like. You can start with a section title, for example, and then you can add a text and image module, and I will add some example text for you. And again, you can drag your image right in over on the right here, and then resize using this bottom corner. We can click on preview, and already we've got sort of a shape going for our newsletter. I'm going to click save one more time. Now, since this is the one we're using as an example for a free gift, the best way to send your free gift would be to have it stored on your website or online somewhere. And then in your newsletter, include a clickable link. So that when people receive it, they can click the link and download whatever you have available for download or access the page that you've set up for it. So to add a clickable link, we're just going to highlight that phrase and then click the link icon down at the bottom here. When we do that, we'll be able to add in, mywebsite.com, for example, or wherever you have that download stored. And then we click preview, and we can see now this is a clickable link.
Great.
Now, so we have a bit of our content already set up, and I'm going to show you a bit more about using your theme so that you can really get the same look and feel of your website so that it matches and feels very similar. So to do that, I'm going to click on this themes button over on the right. And here we can see we have several pre-made themes we can choose from. And as you scroll through and choose them, they'll be automatically applied to the newsletter that we've already created. Now, if we like these themes, but we want to make some slight changes, let's say I want to make my section title centered and a bit larger, and maybe I want to change that footer to a lighter color. To do that, I can click on the pencil icon next to the theme that I'm using and choose which kind of text I want to edit. So I'm going to start by editing my section title. And I'm going to click on this large A button a couple of times to make the text bigger. And while I do that, you'll see those changes happening live right there in the promotion as we create it. And I'm going to make that centered as well by hitting this center line here. And click OK Update. And now we can see my section title is larger and it's centered. So every time I add a new section title, it'll be this exact same font and it'll be centered as well. So I'm going to do that now with another section title. And do something like this. So now we see the two of them are the same font, same color, both centered, both same size. And it's a great way to sort of maintain a nice, consistent branding and feel throughout your entire newsletter. I know that a lot of people think that a good newsletter should be, bright and brash and loud and have lots of different colors and lots of different text. But I'll tell you now that's actually not very exciting to receive. And it's much nicer to get something that has nice, consistent look and feel and doesn't really get too busy. And it can be tempting to have, this one be red and this one be green and that one be blue. But it's a lot of extra work for you. And it's a lot of work to read. And your subscribers' eyes will get a little bit tired trying to piece through all of the different colors and fonts and things. So
Yeah, that's a great point. And, one issue that we're all going to share as we get older is that our vision is not always going to be great.
Yep.
And when you think about it, you never know when somebody's going to read your newsletter, and chances are good that they're going to be tired, their eyes are tired, they may not have the best lighting, and then you never know what piece of equipment they're viewing it on, whether it's their desktop, their laptop, a tablet, a phone. So simplicity is really, I think it's super important, and it's only getting more important.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, people using iPhones these days, those screens are tiny.
They are.
So you don't want to make people have to zoom in or copy and paste things to read them on a better screen or anything.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the simpler and cleaner it is, the better luck you're going to have with your subscribers actively opening your mail and reading it.
Yeah. Great.
All right. So we've got some basic text so far. I'm just going to add another
Hey,
couple
I'm
of
going
things.
to interrupt you for 1 second. Just in terms of what should I put in my newsletter,
Mhm.
that can be a whole seminar in itself, and I don't
Yeah.
want to go down a rabbit hole. But do you folks recommend anything in particular about a privacy policy or things like that?
Um, Privacy policies, it really depends. I don't find them necessary if you're not sending sensitive information.
Okay.
And in general, it's good to avoid sending sensitive information via email anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Privacy policies, I think, would only be necessary if you're sending on behalf of a larger organization that requires that involved,
Okay.
or if you're sending to people who have super secure inboxes and need to have those things attached. But in general, I think if you're just writing nice full sentences that are descriptive
Mm-hmm.
and not too spammy, you don't want to do all caps 50% off, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. That might not be as good. So I recommend a nice conversational tone. It can be professional or more fun depending on who you're sending your mail to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But absolutely full sentences and a couple of nice pictures should be all you need to get your mail delivering right away to the inbox.
Yeah, and that point you made is a really great one. So there are things that you might be doing inadvertently. Maybe you are excited about some promotion that you've got going on, but word choice and exclamations and different things like that can really trigger your email going into a spam folder by somebody's internet service provider,
Yeah,
their
it's
email
true, and it's
system.
it's the kind of thing that sometimes you don't even realize is a red flag. So it's if anybody has any questions and is concerned about that maybe happening, they can feel free to email me. I've got a couple of great documents that explain what those spam filters really look for. And usually it's a combination of things. So one sentence that's all caps lock, exclamation points might not be a problem. But if that's in your subject line and you've got, some links that are suspicious, then the combination of those two things might
Right.
might cause problems. So it's definitely a delicate balance. If anybody needs any help, I'm happy to lend a hand.
Great, thanks.
Cool. So I'm just going to add another little, some more modules here so we can fill out and get a sense of how this composer works a little bit more. So something that's great about this composer is that we have this drag and drop option. So we can drag our modules up and down depending on where we want things to be. But what happens is if this gets to be very long and you don't want to scroll all the way to the bottom to find these buttons again, you can hover your cursor in between any two existing modules. And when you do that, you'll see this blue line appear. Now, if you click that blue line, it'll create a new empty module that matches the one above it. So if I want to have another module with text on the left and an image on the right, I can click that blue line underneath that module, and it'll open a new empty one for me here. So again, I'm going to copy just a little bit of example text. And from my images sidebar, I'm going to drag another image in and click preview. And now I'm going to move my section title up in between the two, and again, drag the inner corner of the image to resize it. And let me add a little bit more text to fill this out as well. And now I can scroll to the top and click my Save button. Excuse me, sorry about that.
Bless you.
So I think this is a pretty good look at
Mm-hmm.
building your newsletter. So now we're going to take a look at our preview version. When we click on the preview button, we'll see sort of what it's going to look like when it hits people's inboxes. So it's a nice way to see it without all of the formatting options and blue lines that glow. So now we have, our section title, our photos, and our clickable links. And I think it's pretty much ready to go. So what I'm going to do is, once this is all finished, I'm going to click continue. And now what we'll get is our mailing details. So this is our autoresponder that we're sending with a link to our special gift. So at the top here, we have send immediately after a member signs up, and that's selected. So that means once somebody goes through your web form, they'll be added to your list, and they'll receive this email immediately. Now we can choose our from name, and this is what's going to happen when somebody receives the mail in their inbox. It'll say, you've got mail from so-and-so, let's say Becca Brennan Photography, and it'll tell the email address. Now, you can choose any email address you like as the from address that shows up when the mail hits the inbox of your recipient. But something that's important to keep in mind is that if somebody replies to your email, their reply will go to that same email address. So you want to make sure you have an email address here that you do have access to, that you monitor pretty frequently, because if anybody replies to your newsletter, that's where their reply is going to go. Something else important to do is create a nice subject line. For a subject line, I definitely recommend having your business name in there somewhere, or something that refers to your business name, and something that gives people a good idea of what they're about to read. So for this, I would call this something like your gift in photography. So that way they know that they signed up for a free gift, and now the email they received is saying, here's that free gift you asked about.
Great.
We can just do a example postal address. And then we have options as well for Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. Now, if you select any of these, when the mail sends, your recipient will be able to like it on Facebook or share it on Twitter. So I definitely recommend using these for your regular newsletters. But if you're sending a free gift and you only want people who signed up to receive it, I'd say maybe don't include those in this version, because that way, if they share it and everybody can get the free gift, then what's the point? So we'll leave those off of this mailing. Click continue, and it'll go back over our details here. And my subject line looks nice. My from address looks nice, and it will send immediately when somebody signs up. Sounds good, so I'm going to save it. Now, once that's all set, I want to make sure that this will actually start sending at the correct interval. So I'm just going to click start. Now, once I do that, people who are already in that list will receive the drip. And new signups who sign up tomorrow, for example, will receive it as soon as they sign up. So I'm going to click OK, and now we're all set. So when somebody signs up on that web form, they'll be added to the Brooklyn list, and they'll automatically receive the email we just created.
Great.
All right, so I think that's about it for the composer and building your autoresponder. But of course, if anybody has any questions or if you have any follow-ups, do let me know. But it's pretty cut and dry, I think.
Yeah, it is, which is why I think this provider is so significant. I have tried other providers. You know, when I was on my search before I found Mimi, I found these other providers that were just variations of complexity. And, you know, especially for the startup, the person who is in do-it-yourself mode, those other things, in my opinion, just way too complex. And I think that, you know, running a business is insane anyway. So it makes sense to keep anything you can as simple as possible. And, you know, then as you grow, if you decide to add a level of complexity, you can get somebody else to handle it. But really, I'm completely fine with keeping everything as simple as it is.
Absolutely, I agree. And I do think simplicity is the key here, especially for somebody who's just getting started or who's managing a lot of different things at once. You know, entrepreneurs and small business owners do everything, and it shouldn't take you 2 hours to make your newsletter. It shouldn't take you a week to make your newsletter. It should be a pretty quick learning process. And once you're done, you should feel comfortable and empowered to do it yourself. You know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, you can pick a day and just do it.
Yeah.
And if it's taking longer than that, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, again, one of the things that I love about Mimi is this ability to segment your list. because that, you see that, and read, we all read up on things, and of course customization and targeting are so important, which is true, they are. But it's easier if you segment that list ahead of time, have people opt in to a list of that's labeled X. And
Right.
then the one thing that I love, and I don't know if you can show this or not, Becca. One thing I love is when you have multiple lists, and I got a zillion of them. You have all these lists, and you create an announcement, a newsletter, whether it's a broadcast announcement about a course or something like that. You can then choose the lists that you're
Yep.
sending out, which
Absolutely.
is so fantastic, because if you have a list you don't want to send to, then you just don't do it. And you have a way to signify to not send this to people who've already received it. And that is Mimi language for don't duplicate this.
Right.
Because you're going to have, as your business grows, you're going to have people on multiple lists eventually, right? People are going to
Yep.
take this course with you, they're going to buy that product with you, and then you're sending stuff out and they're on a bunch of different lists. So I really love that particular feature.
I will show that to you. I can actually put it together in like
Okay,
2 seconds.
great.
I just want to get another example set up real
Yeah,
fast, because it's a great tool,
yeah,
um,
it is.
and it makes sending really super easy. All right, let me share my
Yeah,
screen.
and it then makes customizing just so much simpler,
Mhm.
because if you are going to be and then it comes with data collection as well. You're going to be in an area, you can send everybody, hey, I'm going to be in this area. Let's all have a meetup or something.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So here I've made on my dashboard just an example of a regular promotion. So
Hmm.
this isn't an autoresponder. This is one that we'd just be sending manually.
Hmm.
So I'm going to click my send button here. And just now when we were speaking, I made an extra list for people who had the favorite color blue.
Okay, great.
So we have the option here to send to our entire audience, and we can send to them, and we can send to everybody except people who like the color blue. To do that, we'll just click on the exclude button here. And that way we're sending to there's 6 minus these 2. So it'll be 4 people altogether who receive the mail. And you can also do the same by sending to people who like the color blue, but excluding people who are in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
So let's say that everybody who likes the color blue is going to be a meetup in San Diego. We want to make sure that there are no people in Brooklyn who like the color blue on this list. So we can exclude our Brooklyn subscribers using that exclude button here. And when you click continue and you go to send, here we go. Now we'll see our total recipients down at the bottom, and that'll calculate, after you've excluded people, how many people are actually receiving this. So we can see that I'm sending to the blue list with 2 people, and I'm removing the Brooklyn subscribers list, which has 2 people. And it says I'm only sending to 1 person, which means that one of my Brooklyn subscribers was also in the blue
Yeah,
list and is being excluded now. So it's working the way it should.
great. Awesome. Thanks for doing that. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about some of these technical pieces about growing your list and communicating, and what happens when I'm a bigger organization and I've got an existing list, but it's with a provider who I hate for
Right.
whatever reason. So I had a question from Robin, and she wants to know what's the best way to segment a list.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, it really depends on your needs, I think,
mhm,
because segmentation is great and it's super important. But if if you're only sending mail to people based on certain purchases, for example,
mhm,
then you probably don't need to segment by city or location. Um,
right,
so if you want to send mail based around someone's location, then you'd want to segment based on that, and you want to have that information and use that to segment later. Um, but if you are only planning on sending based on different information, then that's the information you want to focus on. I know that a lot of people will try and segment based on just about every single thing,
right,
which again I think adds a lot more work, which might not necessarily bring you much reward.
right,
So you sort of want to think about that before you start segmenting your list or starting to plan to, and figure out what your sort of final goal really is.
right.
So if you want to get everybody to go to this event in Brooklyn, then you're going to want to make sure to segment for Brooklyn. Or, just gather all of your addresses for everybody and make sure that you have that information so you can use it later.
Yeah, yeah, that's great information. Um, Now, this next question we had covered a little bit. You had mentioned it, this person asks, I hear if I have a graphic on a message
Hmm.
that goes to people who have Gmail, for example, it could go into their promotion area. And we know that Gmail relatively
Right.
recently made these switches. So depending on when you're watching this, you
Mhm.
might be like, what are you talking about? Because it's old news by then. But people still wrestle with this. So any insight you can share with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, the Gmail promotions folder, people are giving it a bad rap. People think that it's like a spam folder,
Yeah.
but it's absolutely not. What it's supposed to do is help people organize their inboxes. So there's also an updates folder for when you get, password resets. Those tend to go to the updates folder.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a notification on Facebook, you get emails about that. That'll go to your social folder. And then more of your personal mail will go to the primary inbox.
Okay.
So for the promotional folder, that tends to pick up emails that are very image and rich text heavy, as well as things that have unsubscribe links or are generally bulk mail. Um, Now, I know that people are nervous about that, but I actually think that it's helped view rates. I think that people like having their promotion folder and they like, having their coffee in the morning and going through it like a magazine, flipping through to see what kind of
Right.
offers there are, who's getting in contact with them. Um, there really isn't an override at this point for bulk senders to land in the primary inbox automatically. It really is up to the individual Gmail user to figure out if they want to get your mail in that inbox. And if they do, they can just drag and drop the mail from the promotions folder into the primary folder.
Right.
And this is actually somewhere else segmenting comes in handy. If you want to send mail to your Gmail folks and let them know that they can do that,
Mm-hmm.
then you can segment your list for just Gmail addresses and send them, a little note at the top of the newsletter that says, if you want to get this in the primary inbox, just drag and drop it in and click yes to do this in the future, and it'll work.
Great. That's a great tip too. So let me just check because I had been getting some messages and we wove those in, or some questions. We wove those into the demonstration. So let me just go to this one more spot because I did have some people who had some other things. I think you really did cover most of what people wanted to know.
Oh, there was a question I remember from earlier about if you feel like you're already established,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
and so you already on Twitter, let's say, or you already, have social media, then what's the point really of email marketing?
Right.
And I'd argue that social media is great. Don't stop doing it. But I think that email is a really great accompaniment to that. Because if somebody tweets, if you tweet a special deal this morning, but I don't log in and check Twitter until this afternoon, I might totally miss it.
Right.
Whereas if you send me the email, it'll still be there in my inbox next time I go look at it. Um,
Yeah.
so it's a great way to sort of hang out. A lot of a lot of views don't happen within the first minute when you send the email. A lot of the views will happen over the course of the day once people have time.
Right.
So it's great to just be able to email people and have that sitting there and waiting for them when they get a chance.
Yeah, I've actually found that I send an announcement to my newsletter list first.
Hmm.
And that's part of the woohoo bonus of
Right.
being in the know, right? So that list gets things first. They might get things, and I don't mean first by like, okay, at 10 I sent to the newsletter list, at 11 I'm gonna send to Facebook. I mean like a day, 2 days, a week. These people get their super special, right? If they're sharing their data with you, they're special.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then I'll put something on Facebook.
Hmm.
I'll see the same people may opt in through Facebook
Hmm.
and because they didn't see that first message or that sort of thing, especially if there's no real bonus. If
Hmm.
there's no bonus involved in that newsletter message, that email list, I'll see people sign up through Facebook. But when there's something extra super special, they got a
Yep.
discount or something like that, that's when that will drive through the newsletter list.
Hmm.
So this is really part of learning about your own people
Mhm.
and where they like to receive information and how they react best. So as you're really starting to look at your list in these buckets, if you will,
Right.
you can start to then play around with these little tools and start to learn more about your folks.
Yeah.
So I think you did a great job. One thing I do want to ask is that, and I did get a question about this, is okay, I hate my service provider.
Right.
So now I gotta bring these people over, and that can be scary because what if they don't come? It can be a drag because you're gonna run multiple lists maybe
Mhm.
for a little bit of time. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I will say with Mad Mimi in particular, it's super easy to sort of seamlessly start sending from Mimi without your recipients having to do anything.
Right.
So you don't need to ask them to subscribe again if they already subscribed. If they've already been your customers or clients recently and they've already been responsive to your mail, then it's totally fine to just start sending to them right away. Um, so you won't need to send an email and ask them to like click this link to say subscribed. None of that will happen unless you have a really terrible list for some reason. So it should be pretty seamless to just upload them through that copy and paste like I showed you
Right.
before, or just upload the same CSV file that you export from your previous provider.
Mm-hmm.
Most providers allow you to download your list,
Right.
and often it's going to be a CSV file. And we accept those with no trouble at MadMimi. So you can just click the audience page
Right.
and then click add contacts and add your list right away.
Yeah.
Um, and again, often if you export from a previous provider, the export should, if it's awesome, will include whichever lists that people were on before. And when that happens, it's super easy to then, just like we segmented our Brooklyn subscribers and our people who liked the color blue,
Mm-hmm.
you could segment based on the same lists you had before, and then just continue along in Mimi the same way you were sending at your previous provider,
Right.
with the same list organized in the same way.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great because I know that there are a lot of people that are like, you stay with something you hate just because you're thinking the
Yeah,
pain of making the switch
yeah,
is
absolutely.
even worse than the suffering that you have going
Yeah,
on. Oh, I only send once a month. So,
yeah.
anything that you want to comment on about best practices
Mhm.
as we head to wrapping this up?
Absolutely.
Anything you want to share with that?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about making your content not spammy.
Right.
So you definitely want to stick with a nice conversational tone or professional tone, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever your subscribers have gotten used to from you and what
Right.
they want to hear from you. So I really do like the idea that you call the list like your community. I think paying attention to what they want
Mm-hmm.
is one of the best practices you can abide by. Sending them what they've subscribed for, giving them the information they're looking for, and friendly, helpful tips that make them feel special and valued because they are. They're awesome.
Right.
They're the reason you're in business. You should treat them as such.
Yeah.
So I really do think maintaining that kind of respect for your subscribers is super important and valuable. Um, and then just in terms of sort of the technical aspect of it, make sure you're only sending to people who have been actively responsive. So have read your mail or replied to your mail or signed up or done something like clicked on a link in your email within the past 18 months or so. Because if somebody was on your list 3 years ago but hasn't answered or opened an email in the past year and a half, then chances are they've changed their email address, or the email address is totally expired, or they're just not that like interested, and maybe they're not going to read anymore.
Yeah,
So
and that great tip, and that's what's called cleaning your list,
yeah,
right? Making sure your list is clean. So let's just talk quickly about the analytics. I had forgotten to mention that. I did get a lot of questions about that. The bounce rate. What's a
yeah,
hard bounce? What's a soft bounce? Well, again, we don't want to do a whole seminar on
right.
understanding email. Can you just talk about the information that you want to look for and how to then make a deduction based on the information they're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
I think the most important thing is the date of last contact or responsiveness.
Yeah.
So if they are that old, then honestly, it's best to leave them off the list. You want a better quality list over a higher quantity list.
Right.
So the quality of a subscriber really comes down to how recently they were in touch with you,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe how often they were in touch. But really, if they've opened one email in the past 6 months, then they probably will open one again at some point.
Right.
Um, so I'd recommend like sticking to the most active contacts.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is that spam filters keep a very close watch on your bounce rates or your complaint rates or your view rates.
Right.
So if your bounces are over, 5%, 10%, 15% consistently, you might see your mail go into the spam folder. And if that happens often enough, there's not much we can do at Mimi to fix it for you. If your list is out of date, it's out of date.
Right.
So you want to keep it as up to date and fresh as possible. And yeah, just the dates of last contact or the date of the last time somebody, purchased an email, purchased a product from you. Sorry, but that's the best thing to keep in mind for your list staying clean.
Yeah, so you've got different types of bounces. There's
Mm-hmm.
a hard bounce, a soft bounce, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk just about what those two things signify?
Sure. So a hard bounce is pretty much always indicates that the email address is totally not deliverable. So a hard bounce will happen when the domain is totally expired. There's a lot of those old like rr.com domains that got closed down a few years ago.
Okay.
So those will result in a hard bounce if the email address just doesn't exist anymore. Soft and general bounces are often or sometimes temporary issues. So sometimes it'll be just a domain security thing that they're working through. Sometimes it'll be a firewall, or it'll just be a full inbox that will then get resolved later. So if you see a general bounce or a soft bounce, it's not the end of the world. It can resolve itself eventually. And in our system, MadMimi will automatically remove hard bounces for you and automatically remove spam clicks and unsubscribes. And general and soft bounces, we tend to only suppress if we've got an indication from the domain that it's a general bounce that's not going to go away. So we do keep those active for you as long as their domain says, yeah, we'll get it eventually, keep it coming.
Okay.
So that's something that helps with a system like this is keeping track of which ones are actually active and which ones aren't.
Right. So you're really looking for people who are, what's your open rate? Are people getting your messages? Are they actually opening them? What are they doing with them? Are they clicking any links that you may have? And so it's always a good idea then sometimes to have these clickable links.
Absolutely.
It's kind of a testing
Yeah.
thing, if you will. But also you're probably making announcements about, oh, check out this offer on my page, or check out this registration for this event, or that sort of thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And adding links helps for the spam filters to know that you're real. So if you have a good link that is to a reputable website, then spam filters like, okay, cool, that's a good website, go ahead. So the more information you have in your newsletter, the better spam filters will know that you're a real person sending real valuable stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for
You're
all
so
that information, for spending so much time with us. My gosh, we've been on here
Oh, wow.
for quite a while. But the demonstration was fantastic. So I hope those of you who watched this really got a lot out of it and got some basic understanding about the lingo and how simple it is to get rid of your existing provider if they
Yeah.
stink,
You can
okay?
just walk away.
Exactly. Life is too short. Move
Yeah.
your stuff over to a provider who allows you to do things in a simple way and keeps your life simple. So, thank you so much, Becca, and thank you to everybody watching today. I just want to mention that you want to make sure you visit the letstalktechshow.com. Make sure that you opt in to get our secret stash of good stuff. Becca has been so great to put together a tip sheet, and I'm going to have that on that secret stash page, but you only get it when you opt in. So make sure you do that. Sign up, and you'll also get regular notifications about the show and new episodes. So thanks for watching. This has been Winnie Anderson with Becca Brennan. For the Let's Talk Tech show, we're here every Tuesday with demystifying the technology for you. So hopefully the tech gods will smile on you, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks. Bye now.